Randy, we've got a problem.
What?
They go.
Reality's here. He's trying to crash the party. Reality? Who let him in?
You're sad that people are mean? Well, I'm sorry. The world isn't one big liberal arts college campus.
I don't have an agenda like I want people to do something. I need them to do something. I want them to avoid irrationality.
I guess what interests me is just like what interests everybody else. It's just sort of what feels real.
That was totally wicked!
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to yet another edition of Real News. I know you have a choice in your morning time as to who to spend time with, which community build, which family to grow within, and we appreciate you in particular for choosing this program to hang out with me, David Shine Thompson, and the entire Real News crew. Real news, real friends, real family. That's what we do here, y'all. This is why we call it Real News. It is morphed into something absolutely beautiful. We started off as just an ugly little caterpillar, Shine. I think that's what we started off as, and we're slowly emerging as this beautiful little butterfly. Now, we don't quite have our full wings yet, man, but I don't know. We might take flight.
You may have been an ugly caterpillar. I was a strikingly handsome caterpillar. So.
Although I did have a very fully coiffed, there's little bristled hairs in the back of my caterpillar back is what I did right there. Oh, man. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. This show here is entitled The Real News. I'm pulling up the Unified Chat. If you don't know what the Unified Chat means when I mention such things, we got this little program. Rather, Shine has this little program called Streamlabs, and it allows us to push out to a multitude of different channels, say YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, used to be Mixer, a whole bunch of stuff all at once. And if you want to find where all those things are, just go to realnewsradio.live. Realnewsradio.live, you type that into your search bar, it'll be the landing page for everything. But if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch or anywhere that allows you to comment on this program while it's happening live, I will see those comments regardless of where you're viewing it from in this Unified Chat. Now, that's important because what we do here, I truly believe, is unlike most anything else that's happening on the Facebookers or the YouTubers or the Twitterscapes or any of these new fangled things the kids are doing nowadays. We're not trying to grow numbers to get likes or shares, or we appreciate the likes and shares, tweak the algorithm. That's why we're saying it. But we're not doing that solely to get more follows, to get more views, we're not monetizing anything. We're doing this to grow a family, to genuinely grow a community. So we can know each other on a more personal, intimate level than I think you can do across anywhere else. Jess just said in YouTube, by the way, morning. What's up, Jess? Jess is a perfect example of what we're talking about, by the way. We come in here and pitch this line every single morning about growing a community and growing a family and growing and working and progressing with each other, one another. Jess doesn't even live in the state of Tennessee. Jess lives in Pennsylvania. I'm not even sure. I just assume that Jess found us because of our boy Zig, and that connection happened one way or another. Zig is one of the GEDs from Americans for Prosperity. GED is Grassroots Engagement Director. He's up in Pennsylvania. I just assume we picked up Jess from something we did with Zig one day. I don't even know if that's true. The point I'm making, though, Jess jumped on board sometime a while ago, and now she's sticking around, and we absolutely love having her here. She has fantastic comments in the morning. This is what I'm talking about. People that don't even live in the state now are now growing this family with each other, and the purpose of what we're doing here is to create a scenario, a community by which we can have calm, cordial dialogue in disagreements with people, so that when we do have disagreements with people, it's disagreements amongst friends and neighbors, not amongst enemies, right? I got Facebook going. I got YouTube going. We got all the things going here. You'll see the headlines for today. Let's start out with the greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment. That's the quick segment where we ask y'all, what are you into? How are you doing? What's going on in your life right now? Everything good? Anything bad? You need prayer for anything? You need someone just to help you out? I don't know. Put a hot meal on your front door, something like that, man. You got a GoFundMe page you want to direct somebody to. I don't know. Is there a business in your area that's trying to innovate that needs to stay alive? Let us know. We'll get them on the program. We talk about small business stuff all the time, especially during the COVID shutdown. Anything like that. Here's the headlines we'll see for today. Tiger in Knoxville. I feel like that's not something we can just jump right by. But a tiger in Knoxville. We got a showdown happening in Nashville. And a bunch of just little random pieced here and there evergreen articles that I want to get to. Ranked choice, repealing the 17th Amendment. Turns out Edward Snowden was right, or so says the Ninth Circuit. A bunch of random stuff. Let's just dive right into it. All right, so if you're in the Tennessee area, if you're in the Knoxville area in particular, my buddy Shannon and I were joking about this a little bit this morning. Well, maybe not joking about it, trying to be as sincere as possible. But yeah, in all sincerity, y'all, Fox 17 is reporting here, there is a tiger loose in East Tennessee. Now, this is a Nashville outlet reporting on what's happening in Knoxville, and this is just the first thing that came up, so I'm assuming you can find more accurate information in Knoxville. But this was printed as of Thursday, September 10th. So I assume sometime this morning this came out by Anthony Glover here. This is all they say. Knoxville, Tennessee, authorities are searching for a tiger that has been spotted in Knox County. The tiger was spotted in Knox County by a Knox County Sheriff's deputy in the Forks of the River Industrial Park Wednesday night. According to Wednesday night. All right, man. According to the Knox County Sheriff's Office, there has been no other sightings at this time. The Sheriff's Office patrol units, Animal Control, Air Watch, well, that's good. Air Watch, Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency, Knoxville Police Department's Animal Control Unit, and Tiger Haven are all working to locate the animal. Anyone with information on a missing tiger, Shannon, this shouldn't be a funny story. Or locates the tiger, call this number right here. If you know anything about this, if you see a tiger walking around, 865-922-1070. That's 865-922-1070. I'm not trying to laugh about this, Sean. It shouldn't be a funny situation. A tiger's a legit deal. If you have small dogs or anything like that, definitely make sure you're watching them. It's 2020, Sean. I mean, it's just this is stuff just kind of like rolls off the cuff at this point. It's just par for the course, isn't it?
They can have helicopters and boats and police officers, whatever they want. They ain't gonna find that tiger.
Ain't gonna find that tiger.
They ain't gonna find that tiger.
I'm telling you, man, a tiger loose in Tennessee, right? You can't make some of it up.
Man, I hope someone finds that tiger.
Someone finds that tiger.
I hope I don't find that tiger.
Yeah, we're just
he's not far from the house, though. You know, I hear he's over in East Knoxville.
Oh man, we want to look out for the Real News family. Make sure everyone's staying safe here.
Come on.
Hey, speaking of the Real News family, Jess just told us in YouTube, the YouTube out there, said, shit, I had no idea. Talking about how she found us. She said, I have no idea. Y'all just popped up one day. I love y'all. That's incredible. That's an even better part of the story. That Jess just organically stumbled upon this program one day and decided to stick around. That is super duper cool. Super duper cool is what that is. That's one of the coolest things I've heard almost all week long. That is fantastic. Seriously. Yeah, I mean, like, Shine and I will tell you, an organic follow, an organic view, organic meaning you didn't pay for the advertising. Organic view itself is something to write home about. Organic follow is something you get excited about. Someone joining a part of a community, a family that you're trying to build, that is something I think is virtually unprecedented in the digital landscape that we're going through right now. And I'm not overspeaking when I say that either. Next story at hand. Knoxville, y'all. It's 2020. Things just happen all over the place. Y'all had both of these things in the same day. A small plane makes an emergency landing off of I-640. I don't know where this was. Let me see where this was. The story will tell you. Yeah, I-640. That's where it was. So this happened yesterday in Knoxville. Here's the headline. Small plane makes emergency landing on Knoxville Interstate, takes off safely an hour later. You can see the video of the takeoff. But a small plane had an emergency landing on I-640 after it ran out of gas. Is that a thing that gets like that? Just I'm not going to make a comment on that. I'm not. I have no idea how to fly a plane. I'm not going to pretend like I do. Small plane made an emergency landing on I-640 after it ran out of gas, according to Knoxville police. It took off safely after refueling less than about an hour afterwards. Now, the Cessna 172 with a pilot and 2 passengers on board took off from Sky Ranch Airport near Alcoa Highway and was on the way to Island Home Airport in South Knoxville. Shiny, you know where that is? That airport?
The Island Home?
Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit. It just sounds super fancy,
I mean, you know? Like if you're crossing over the Gay Street or Henley Street Bridge from downtown Knoxville into South Knoxville, it's off to the left on an island in the river.
Oh, there you
go. It's right next to Iams Nature Center. So that means, like, for real, I was thinking that, man, they must have like just ran out of gas because that's not far from Island Home, and they must have had no gas because it doesn't take 5 minutes in an airplane. I've been in an airplane and ridden from Alcoa to Island Home. It doesn't take 5 minutes. So they must have been on E or something like that. But like, good for Knoxville.
Yeah,
good for that
right?
plane.
Yeah.
That's not how
Seriously.
I want to go out, is going down in a plane. That sounds awful.
No, absolutely.
So good for the
absolutely.
pilot, good for Knoxville, for, I don't know, like, did they call the police? The police shut down the interstate? That's amazing.
Actually, the story goes on to
incredible.
The story goes on to say that the police, upon landing, the wonderful thing is that nobody was injured. Nobody was hurt. Not a single vehicle was damaged, plane or automobile. Nothing was damaged. And the police officers, they said they were receiving almost no information on the way to the landing from any air traffic controller. They were receiving the information from people on the streets, just calling in and sort of coordinating. Now, the police did shut down the highway upon departure, and the whole ordeal took like an hour. Literally, no injuries. It took like an hour. They shut the thing down, I guess, refueled the plane enough for it just to take off. You can see the video there. Sean, maybe pull the video while it's playing. That video that's the first thing that plays on the link when you pull it up is a video of the takeoff. Yeah, you can see it right there. That's the takeoff that's happening as the police escort is falling behind. So they got this whole thing said and done in an hour. It's just like, it's
and there go the police officers following them when they're
right.
Hey, you know what? Hey, Knoxville, man.
Knoxville doing it right.
Like spontaneous order.
Yeah.
It's because we know how to do it around here. We just do, man. We're like, we ain't gonna let a plane go down today? No, clear the interstate. Go, go, go.
I mean, just figure out that tiger situation. We got stuff.
Man, we ain't even worried about a tiger situation, man. We ain't even worried about it.
Oh gosh. Well, everyone stay safe out there for real. It's a tiger.
Old Johnny out South Knoxville way. He's got them big dogs, you know.
That's how the big dogs. Look, I know it's probably a zoo tiger. Just don't try and feed the thing. All right, I don't know how tame to do tigers.
It's a private tiger. It's like a.
Is it a private tiger, really?
Well, it's not one from the jungle, Grant. It's not a tiger from the jungles of East Tennessee.
It's not like Mike Tyson's like private, Knoxville home tiger. It's like
or Shaq's, Shaq's tiger. He's got a house in Pigeon Forge or something like that.
They said we got a Madagascar 4 in the making, right? The tiger just got separated from his other zoo friend. I mean, his other jungle friends who just hang out in Knoxville. Oh gosh. All right, let's get on to this story, okay? Here's the headline for today. Showdown in Nashville. You'll see that. A less sizable portion of the show today is going to be taken up by a little bit of local stories because some of the national stories are just too much to digest at this point, but it is what it is. All right, Nashville. Everybody knows we've been working on this whole property tax issue. And for those that don't know, let me give you the quickest TLDR that I possibly can. Property tax issue that we're discussing. Metro City Council proposed increasing property taxes in Nashville by 34%. They say to make up for a budget deficit. Now, the number of what that deficit is has been wildly varying. It's hard to get a handle on it. Metro Council did have an opportunity after the first quarter sales tax revenue numbers came in to decrease the proposed amount of property tax increase. They neglected to do so. We are now in a situation where Americans for Prosperity, the company where Sean and I both work, we did this massive push over in Nashville. A bunch of the folks that are watching this program right now helped us with that. Showed up to early voting locations, went and knocked doors with us. They're making phone calls. We're sending a text. We did all the bread and butter Americans for Prosperity stuff. It's an interesting thing. It's the first time that Tennessee Americans for Prosperity has been involved in a ballot initiative push. But it's a great opportunity for all of us. Suffice to say, over the entirety of the ordeal, working with Jim Roberts, the attorney here, from beginning to end, over 20,000 signatures we gathered. Turned in those signatures. Now we get this headline here from Tennessee. And Sean, you probably will not be able to pull up the headline because I got paywalled. You may not get paywalled. Check it out, though. I'm not paying
them either, man.
I'm not paying the Tennessee a dime. I mean, literally a single dime. They're not getting anything. I might give them 9 cents, but that's about it. You can go to my show notes if you want to, because that's.
I mean, what do the writers live in Denver or something?
Well. And the only thing we really need to pay attention to here is about the first couple of paragraphs. The rest of it, if you want to go fill in the blanks, that's fine.
Hey, I'm going to throw up the Evernote on the screen so people can follow along.
All right, fantastic. So here's the Tennessee story, all right? So the question was, what just happened? Tennessee story says, it was a reasonable question at last week's Metro Council meeting after plenty of procedural back and forth and shrewd strategy by some members during a debate over a proposal from conservative members in a separate public petition effort to curb the council's ability to raise property taxes. All right, so quick breakdown of what that means. Last week they asked questions to these people. All right, what's going on? I'm a journalist. Can you tell me what's going on here? There's this group back here that has 20,000 plus signatures. Seems like the taxpayers don't want a property tax increase at all. Y'all are still trying to push something through. I'm getting word that they're also putting something else on the ballot here coming from the council members. Can you break this down for me? So Tennessee says, what did happen? The majority of members, and quickly catching up, we submitted those signatures. They're in the process of being counted. Hopefully, I will have a major update by the end of today or tomorrow morning about that. Tennessee continues. So what did happen? A majority of members successfully took over legislation from council members Steve Glover and Robert Swope. Now, Steve Glover in the Nashville area is widely known as, I don't know, man, I don't want to say the only conservative, but like the conservative on the Metro Council. He's the go-to conservative guy. He's got a radio voice down here, like he's speaking through gravel. He's awesome, right? Now, a majority of members successfully took over legislation from council members Steve Glover and Robert Swope and replaced it with different language that, if placed on the ballot and successfully approved by voters, would make the conservative push effectively meaningless. Hear that one more time. This is the gamemanship that's going to be played. We knew this was coming. We knew this was the game that's going to be played. Silver lining very quickly to this story. You know you're making a difference when elected officials have to play games here, right? You know that you are doing something correct when elected officials have to start moving and shuffling and shaking and you know what I'm saying? Shine knows what I'm talking about too.
Hey, look, this Nashville, I got to turn on the light and everything. This Nashville Taxpayer Protection Act is like Obi-Wan Kenobi. If you strike it down, it will become more powerful than you can imagine.
That's true.
And it is true.
It is true.
Any action they take to stop it will only ensure their destruction.
That is absolutely true.
Like at this point, we could just not have the property tax in Nashville. If they try to get in the way, they could not be council members anymore. Because like it's like normally you don't think about your city council member. You know, you're like, oh, this is a nice park bench. I'll blame the city council. Right? Now, if they keep making a stink about it, everyone's going to know their names. So that means they'll know that the other person's name next time they go to vote is the person they want, right? And they're going to associate that person's name, which they normally don't even know their name, because who cares who the city council in Nashville is, right? Normally. But not only are you going to remember, you're going to remember that they're associated with wanting to raise your property taxes by 34%. Or 37. Sorry, 37, right? I keep saying 34.
It's 34 to 37, which is a very difficult,
hey,
right?
Then it's government, so it's 37. So if the high estimate times 2, probably. But you get what I'm saying. Like everything they do to try to stop it will draw press.
Yep.
And build narrative. And in fact, I'd say if I was the city council, the least amount of people that know about this, the better. You might not get enough. Just tell all the city employees to go vote. But if they keep doing stuff and it keeps being in the press every couple of weeks, they're going to have a lot of people go vote.
Man, I'm telling you. And this is the scenario that Shine's exactly right.
They're so dumb.
Well, here's the scenario that's being played out right now. The Tennessean is saying the move to counter and override the petition initiative. When the Tennessean says the petition initiative, they're talking about what y'all did. The petition initiative is you. That is the work that was done to gather all those 20,000 signatures. And I do sincerely mean the work that y'all did. Even folks that don't live in this state, folks that had nothing to do with actually sitting in an early voting location while we were gathering signatures, you all tuned in to let us pontificate about this and spew this stuff every single day. You went and shared it with your friends. You discussed it with other people. You brought it up in conversation. Those sort of, I like to call them organic water droplets. I use that analogy because if you drop a little here and drop a little there, it starts to cause ripples, and ripples cause a wave, and a wave causes an absolute tidal or tsunami that actually makes a change, right? Even those small little conversations you were having in the petition initiative conversations, that's what caused this stuff. So they say the move to counter and override the petition initiative, dubbed the Nashville Taxpayer Protection Act, led by local attorney Jim Roberts, the Metro Council comes as Nashville voters are likely to face the prospect of a special election on December 5th. So here's what it is. If you're looking at the Evernote show notes, that's why I highlighted this one sentence here. If the election is held, voters could face the prospect of deciding between competing charter amendments. On the one side is the effort by Jim Roberts that would limit annual property tax increases to 2% without voter approval and require bonds for city projects totaling more than $15 million to go before voters. You all know this. We've been over multiple times what the Nashville Taxpayer Protection Act does in intimate detail. The group turned in signatures to place the issue on the ballot last month. Yes, we did. On the other side is the language the council members pushed through last week, which would effectively reinforce the city's existing limits on property tax increases, approved by voters in 2006, they say. Sort of. It's a totally different story. We don't have time to get into that today. And its ability to issue bonds without going to voters. Now, I don't know, man. I would just say if you're going to issue bonds and do stuff for building city projects to the tune of $15 million and more, I would kind of like to have a say in it, right? Especially if you're going to destroy the bond rating. And what is that? I think every dollar out of every $7 spent or something like that in Nashville is going to pay back bonds right now. Every dollar out of every $7 spent. Now, here's what this whole story gets to me. And there's a multitude of other stories and issues going on. And read the rest of the Tennessee story. It's all in the show notes if you want to. This is a little impromptu poll that Fox News did last night. And this goes to prove Shine's point that he was talking about a second ago, where he said the counter to this is it's a very difficult, if not seemingly impossible, situation for the metro government to overcome when it looks as if they were trying to force a property tax increase against the expressed will of its citizens. And that is exactly what's happening. Sean, click on that Twitter link if you can.
Let's just savor that phrase, expressed will. Hey, look, people in government can do whatever they want if you don't express your will. And because it's like an obvious too, because if you ask anyone, no one wants to pay 37% more in property taxes. Come on. I'm sorry. Please keep. I just had to savor that for a second. Expressed will. Because look, this is Tennessee. Less than 10% of people vote. We don't have as much involvement as I would like people to be involved, But there you go. Because the expressed will of the voters, even just 20,000 of them in a city like Nashville, which has a lot more than 20,000 people. It has a lot more than 20,000 people. Because the expressed will of the voters, they can't BS their way into, people really do want a property tax. That's what they want. They're concerned about our budget crisis. Well, they're maybe concerned about you spending too much money and charging them too much to try to live there. That's what they're concerned about. You figure it out. Don't ask for more money. You figure it out.
Man, Jessica just said in Facebook a second ago. Jess, sorry, I can't say Jessica all the time. It's not right. But Jess just said in Facebook a second ago, got them shaking in their boots, and we do. But I want to put a little caveat, sort of a little tag on what Jessica said. First of all, I would say that you all have them shaking in their boots. Everybody that watches this program. But secondly, part of the reason why I like telling this story about the property tax thing going on right now is because I genuinely believe. Now, I have a slight vested interest to believe this, but I genuinely believe that this story is the narrative that's needed for right now. This story, the storytelling arc that everybody, that we all, this community put together to express their opinion on something like this property tax is vitally important. It's desperately needed, not because of a property tax thing. Yes, that's true. The property tax thing is absolutely, and that's the reason why we did it. But what has come out of this is an ability for everyday individual folks to make their voice heard at a level that is now just rocking government at its core. Now, yes, it's just a city metro government, sure, but it is rocking government at its core. The point I'm making is, in times like this, where executive orders are rampant, overreach is the topic du jour. We just don't feel like we have control of our own lives. You can't go where you want to. You can't sit where you want to. You can't take your dog where you want to. You can't go to a park in a particular time. Masks are everywhere, or masks aren't everywhere. Or I don't know. The point is that you just don't feel like you can have control over anything in your own life anymore. And it's that lack of control that spins us into this sense of perpetual chaos. There's sort of repeating downward spiral. It does something psychological, right? It does something to the human psyche. It hits us in ways that we're not meant to be hit. And it really challenges our notions of liberty. I know I'm trying to pipe this up a little bit, but in some small way, why I'm trying to give everyone a victory back on something like this is to let your voice be heard, to know that you guys, all of y'all, can make a difference. When Sean and I come in here and preach sometimes, sign this petition or do this thing or follow this here, we are telling you this is the type of results you get. This is the type of results you get. And if we can have 100, 200, 250 million plus conscious Americans doing stuff like this at the local level, being solution oriented, we wouldn't need this cult of personality nonsense happening from the top down anymore. We wouldn't have to constantly be looking at a single individual to hopefully save us in some weird perverted messiah complex all the time. We could do it for ourselves because you can do it for yourselves. You get what I'm saying? This is a little bit of a David Goliath thing in a time where everybody needs to recognize that you have the power of a David. We all do, especially my boy Shine, whose real name is David.
I got smooth stones for days, bro. I got a whole bag full of smooth stones ready to slang them, metaphorically.
Yeah, right.
Politically.
Political slangs.
Yeah, not literal. You got to say that in 2020. In 2020, you got to say that your metaphorical weapon is a metaphor.
Pull up that in the show notes section here, man. I want to finish the story by proving Shine's point here. So it's under that story, the Tennessean we're at there, but it's the first tweet that's leaked out there. It's like 2 or 3 paragraphs down, right? See where it says Nashvillians could vote in December. Yeah. Okay. So pull that up. If you haven't voted already, Shine, vote to repeal too expensive. Now, if this is any indication, what you're looking at on your screen, if this impromptu polling done by Fox 17, which, wrote an article about this last night, which is where I pulled this tweet from. Harriet Wallace works for Fox 17. If this impromptu polling from, I don't know, call it 1,057
on Twitter.
On Twitter.
Which is usually pretty left-leaning, by the way. Right?
Right.
Yeah, so it's not scientific, but it is against the normal bias.
Yes, exactly. And, man, look, in all things considered, a random sampling of about 1,200 people is usually considered that, like go-to number. So, again, it's not super scientific, but if this is even a small indication as to what the Metro Council is having to deal with, if this is the public feeling about this 34% property tax increase, then I think what Shine said before is a pretty decent set of analysis. If 84% of people, if 84% of people in the area think that this is just too much, you can't deal with a 34% increase right now, well, you got that's a fairly insurmountable odds. So this is the public image, the way that citizens feel about it. This is what they're going to have to be fighting back against. I don't know. I think we're in pretty good company here, and I've harped about that for probably long enough. It's 9:30 here. Hey, last thing in Tennessee, just be aware of this here. This kind of goes to what I was saying before. In a time where you feel like you're sort of lacking control, you don't have a say on anything. I don't know, man. You don't really know what's going on behind the scenes sometimes. There's a new story coming out of News Channel 5 in Nashville here that apparently Tennessee has gone on an $80 million no-bid spending spree for COVID-19 supplies. Some people care about it. Some people don't care about it. The basic idea is exactly what it says in the headline there, that Tennessee government, because of Governor Lee's executive orders, has spent $80 million of taxpayer money, and it hasn't really abided by the Tennessee law that says you have to throw that up for an open bid. So Tennessee taxpayers get the best deal on what they're buying.
It's because we're under an executive order.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Under that medical emergency, they don't have to do bids.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you get with executive orders.
That's right, yeah.
It's not illegal. It's just not normal rule of law.
Yeah.
Sounds like a Governor Lee hit piece to me. Not that I'm trying to protect Governor Lee, because he's upset me a little bit sometimes, but mostly it's been great. I mean, you get to go outside, Tennesseans. Have you talked to anybody from anywhere else? I got this buddy that lives in L.A., and he's literally losing his mind. He wanted to have a meeting outside of his apartment, so he had it in a car because he's like, I can't go anywhere. But anyway, It's not so bad. Stop complaining, News Channel 5.
Well, I mean, honestly, that has been a topic that a lot of people, I can't tell you the number of people, actually I can. It's about 4 or 5 people in just the last couple of days, because I went back home to visit family recently, and about 4 or 5 people. They know what we do up here in Nashville, and they wanted to know what I think of Governor Lee's team and how he's doing. And I don't know, man. It's just like you said, John. It's kind of adding to that narrative of how is he doing. But it's weird. Like people bring that conversation up, and I don't think anybody is questioning like he's going to be primaried or something like that. Someone's going to run against him or anything. I mean, obviously you're going to have a Democratic.
No, man.
But
it's like, dude, there's a big difference between, like, you got to just put everything in perspective. There's what he's doing versus what you want him to do. And then there's what he's doing versus what the other 50 governors are doing. And that's the context. Like, yeah. And here's the funny thing is that no one ever pays attention to government. That's the problem. And because of COVID, now everyone's paying attention to government and everyone's got an opinion about how everything should be run in a crisis. But what should have happened is they should have an opinion about how things are run regularly when it's, not COVID. And then you'd have an idea. Like, I'm not surprised by that story. Like, $80 million. Okay. From the state of Tennessee that takes in like 7 or 8 billion or something like that. I don't know. Or a lot. They took in so much money. 80 million, they probably spent it and then like figured they'd get federal money from a grant to pay for it, which they will. Like, that's not a story, Oh, they didn't bid the contract. Yeah, because speed's more important.
Right. Well, I mean, that's exactly what it is.
Money.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, they're not going to throw out, hey, we need, I don't know, let's use ventilators as an example. We need 1,000 ventilators. Let's throw this out there and give it a month or two.
Yeah, it's like who can do it the quickest, not who can do it the cheapest.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, man. So I don't know. Make the story of it as you will.
Well, and here's another good example, because I know this for sure. Like when FEMA contracts, like say like a tornado or a hurricane comes through, right? And a federal interstate is damaged. Do you think they bid that job? No. It's whoever can get there and fix the interstate, and move the debris and get commerce moving again. That's who gets the job. Period. And they don't even get paid for 4 years because it's government. It's whoever can front the money, too. That's the other thing. So during emergencies, we don't do bid contracts anywhere.
Hey, let me ask just this real quick. All right, I don't know how many people are watching right now. I most of the time I keep these show notes up in front of me, so I guess I could check back to Facebook, see how many people we're having there and on YouTube. But let me just throw this out here for the audience. If y'all want to go over on yesterday, the one of the things that was trending on stuff yesterday was hashtag Trump lied, people died. They're obviously talking about the audio that was leaked from it's not leaked, man.
Bob leaked. Now you're part of the marketing for
right. I know
for the Washington Post.
Right. Bob Woodward did an interview with Donald Trump back in February sometime, and he recorded this audio of Trump. I mean, I can play the YouTube clip if you want to, but recorded this audio of Trump basically saying, he knew. Dude, I don't even care. I'm not even going to get into it. Everybody knows what the story is. If you want to go over it, it's linked in the show notes. We can talk about it right now, but let me know. Just yes, no. Yes, I want to hear about it. No, I don't care. Yes, I have an opinion on it. Tell me what your opinion is. I'm just so sick of what's actually happening here with Woodward waiting until what's the date today, man? September 10th to release this information to us. I mean, if the tactics weren't so clear, if I couldn't read the strategy so easily. The strategy.
That's the way George Bush used to say it.
Yeah, right. If I couldn't read the strategy so easily, then I wouldn't have so much of a problem with this, honestly. But the way that everybody is viewing this, as they rightfully should, Bob Woodward waited until September 10th because he wants to play this thing out as an election issue. It gave Joe Biden an ability to come up and say what he said yesterday, that Trump knew with, in spite of the knowledge that he was taking human American lives into account and to risk. And never mind the fact that Democrats.
The whole thing, man. Joe Biden wants to talk about COVID so bad. He wants to talk about COVID so bad because no one cares about COVID right now. I mean, I don't remember who did. I really wish I could remember who could cite this, but someone did a poll recently. I don't remember if it was Rasmussen or whoever. It was 9 out of 10 voters, civil unrest is their top issue. So Joe Biden desperately doesn't want to talk about that. He wants to talk about COVID because he feels like he's got an edge on Trump on COVID. So that's why Bob Woodward, who might as well be an employee of the campaign for Biden. I mean, all the past 3 weeks since the DNC, every press conference Biden has done, go watch them. Every question's about COVID because the media is trying to turn the conversation back to COVID, but no one cares.
Well, and that's actually the reason why I bring it up. I mean, I'm just sort of taking for granted here. I'm going off a big assumption that everybody has heard of the story, or at least read the transcript, or maybe even heard the audio that I'm referencing. If you haven't, it's linked in the show notes. It's the first YouTube clip under that red headline where it says Trump lied, people died. You can find it. It's on the national story section. I mean, but I'm taking the assumption that people are understanding what I'm talking about. If you're not, let me know. We'll play the clip. We'll bring people up to speed. I just don't want to go off because it seems like the strategy is so clear. And that might be a conversation worthy of having, of who knew what when and what they decided to do about it. So maybe we can get it better in the future. I don't know. I just don't know.
Not in the context of right and wrong, but I know, can we do better? That's it.
I know. So let me say this instead. Sean, go to the very bottom of the show notes if you can. I mean, like literally to the actual bottom of the page here under the evergreen section, because it tails off of something you said a second ago where people just don't care about this story. And I'm struggling a little bit to figure out what people do care about from time to time. See that story down there at the bottom that says NSA surveillance exposed by Snowden ruled unlawful?
Yep.
Click on that link there. Now, this is a story from over a week ago now. It's 7 days ago. And unfortunately, I had to pull the BBC to report it to me, who then links to a Reuters story, good enough, I suppose. But apparently the Ninth Circuit came out over a week ago and it didn't make national major headlines, and probably because it's the Ninth Circuit, I don't know. But it kind of said that, hey, Snowden was correct. Now, not that Snowden was correct in leaking the information, but the information that Snowden leaked, he was leaking. So he said the justification was because I think the NSA might be breaking the law here, and I kind of want people to know about it. That's what Snowden said. That they were doing something that wasn't just unethical or immoral, that they were doing something that was strictly not just against the Constitution, but against hardline statute, as if the Constitution isn't hardline statute. But you get what I mean. You understand what I mean. It's not just some like ethereal constitutional term. There's something you can clearly point to and articulate. And it seems like the Ninth Amendment agreed with him. The Ninth Circuit. Now, this story here from BBC says a national security agency NSA surveillance program has been ruled unlawful 7 years after it was exposed by whistleblower Edward Snowden. Surveillance of millions of Americans' telephone records first came to light in 2013. Man, 7 years. Now, this is the problem with the BBC. It just says the U.S. Court of Appeals. Which one, man? So if you click on that part in the story, the U.S. Court of Appeals, it actually goes to the Reuters story that might give us a little bit more indication as to what's happening. Now we hear this 7 years after former NSA contractor Edward Snowden blew the whistle. The Ninth Circuit tells us on Wednesday handed out a ruling. Said that the warrantless telephone dragnet that secretly collected millions of Americans' telephone records violated the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act and may well have been unconstitutional. It's a little bit of a strange sentence to get through. If it violates the FISA, then it also violates the Constitution. But I don't know. It doesn't matter. Wouldn't that be one and the same? It doesn't matter. They say Snowden, who fled to Russia in the aftermath of 2013, disclosures and still faces U.S. espionage charges, said on Twitter that the ruling was a vindication of his decision to go public with the evidence of the National Security Agency's domestic eavesdropping operation. And this conflict, this debate back and forth, Sean, has been something that the American populace has wanted to be mired in for a while. They just haven't been. Because I don't think that people genuinely care. I just don't think they care. And I may be wrong. But a lot of the times when I would hear these stories, I would get a response of, well, I don't care. It's a Fourth Amendment violation, possibly, maybe, but I don't have anything to hide, so why it's not affecting me, so what do I care type thing. And I think ultimately that's what a lot of these stories come down to, is if it doesn't affect you, then you don't necessarily care all that much. Maybe that's just a thing about human psyche. We have this tendency to see through our own lens, and that's just what consciousness is. But in some sense, man, this stuff is important. It's vitally important. Right? The NSA looking into and doing a dragnet surveillance program of, millions of Americans' telephone records without your knowledge should frustrate everyone. Now, I suppose that's an entirely separate issue than Edward Snowden letting us know about it. But we're 7 years after the fact, and let's be totally honest here. We really haven't changed arguably anything about what he exposed. So if it should frustrate you to your core, if you're a good constitutionalist and you like the Fourth Amendment and you would like law enforcement to get a warrant before they start spying on you, if the Ninth Circuit agrees that it's violative of at least FISA or possibly the Constitution as well, was it not a good thing that Snowden let us know about it? And obviously there you get the rub, because by Snowden letting us know about it, he also violated the law. So you have this weird sort of exchange of which law is better or best. But again, I don't even think that exchange matters for most people, Shine. And I'm going around in sort of like these pontificating circles right now. I get that. I'm just trying to figure out, does anyone even care, honestly, that the NSA was spying on y'all? Does anyone even care that they might have been gathering metadata, not just on your phone calls, but text messages sent and emails? And does anyone even care that that's still going on right now? Does anyone even care about the fact that we knew about this 7 years ago, and then now all of a sudden people want to get upset in 2016 that this was weaponized and used against Donald Trump? I mean, we kind of care when it's our guy that's being attacked by it, right? We kind of cared then when we realized that the DOJ was coordinating an effort and weaponizing our intelligence community, which did happen. The CIA and the FBI were working actively, proactively working together to use this type of ability, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, to surveil the Trump campaign without a warrant, without any type of legal justification to do so. Now, I say any type. We can argue about the semantics of that, or we can argue about the legality of whether that statement is true or not. It doesn't matter, but you get what I'm saying. It matters all of a sudden when it's being done against Donald Trump. And I suppose it would matter to Democrats if Donald Trump then flips the script back around on them. So it's just, I don't know, Shine. I just don't know.
Maybe people would care more if, like, we knew what, like, John Brennan's grocery list was. You know what I mean? Like, if that was made public, then, like, maybe someone would care. You know what bothers me, Grant, is that not as much that the government was breaking the law in the name of national security, because that's kind of a regular thing.
Yeah, I know.
That's kind of a regular thing in the 2000s, since 2001, since 9/11. That's been a thing. And to be fair, I think they have gone a long way to make what they were doing more legal. Since Snowden's revelations in 2013. There's been lots of new legislation. There's been new defense authorization acts, updates to FISA, things like that. My problem with the whole Snowden thing, and I think the reason it became the firestorm story that it did, and I don't know if people can remember, because it was a long time ago. It was like 6 years ago. But I was on the air the morning that the story broke that the government was taking Verizon's data and using it for the NSA. That was the first story. That the NSA was gathering data from Verizon phones, and it probably affected over 70 million customers.
Yep.
That was the first story. I remember it clear as day. I just don't remember the site, like who did it. It may have been CBS News. But my problem is the private-public partnership. That was my problem, was the complicity with Verizon, AT&T, theoretically Google, anybody else. That was my problem with it. Because if our government could either buy that info or make these private companies do it, right? What about all these companies that are doing business in China? Can their government make them do knowledge sharing about me, right? In the same way with the same software, right? Because all it would take is one of these contractors, that's not working for that company or the U.S. government, but has done the interface work, right? Some kind of tech. And then that person can unlock a secret, a safe, so to speak, with valuables more valuable than most of our national secrets. You get what I'm saying? Like, because it's all of our secrets, all of our personal secrets. And that was my problem, is they couldn't do it just alone with the government. They had to involve these corporations, some of which are highly invested in countries that I don't trust.
Yeah.
I felt like in a very practical way, they were opening us as the United States and people like our president, senators, and others. They were exposing them, you know what I mean, to particularly like foreign surveillance operations.
Right.
And like, I know the Fourth Amendment stuff is huge, but like that's kind of regular and we have to deal with, and it's a constant struggle. But the stuff that could like really hurt us is like this private partnership stuff.
Well, see, and that's what I'm saying. If it is a part of the regular struggle for sake of national security, then I would suppose just like you have to be honest about that. And by you, the proverbial you that I'm using is anybody in government that has the ability
or is that is actively doing that type of spying. You have to be honest with the American people, because if not, you end up justifying, or at least somehow, somewhat seemingly rationalizing what Edward Snowden did. Here's what I'm saying. So in this article that we just read in Reuters, here's about the third or fourth paragraph down. It's like the fifth or sixth paragraph down, actually. He says, Snowden speaking here, saying, I never imagined that I would live to see our courts condemn the NSA's actions or activities as unlawful in the same ruling, and in the same ruling, credit me for exposing them. Reuters then goes on to say, evidence that the NSA was secretly building a vast database of U.S. telephone records, the who, the how, the when, and the where of millions of mobile calls, was the first and arguably most explosive of the Snowden revelations published by the Guardian newspaper in 2013. This aspect of the spying was just a small portion of what Snowden revealed, and that's a little bit of what Shine's talking about. So Snowden led on, he revealed far more than just what the Ninth Amendment, the Ninth Circuit ruled on yesterday. Now, Reuters does say accurately here, I believe, up and until that moment, meaning when Snowden revealed it in 2013, up and until that moment, top intelligence officials publicly insisted that the NSA never knowingly collected information on Americans at all. After the program's exposure, U.S. officials fell back on the argument that the spying had played a crucial role in fighting domestic extremism, citing in particular the case of 4 San Diego residents who were accused of providing aid to religious fanatics in Somalia. Now, that's also a little bit of what Shine's talking about. But what I'm mentioning here is if you are knowingly spying on the American people, which is in essence exactly what it is, you can't just call it something else and say that it's not violative of the Fourth Amendment because you're collecting data on everybody. The ruling, this is why another reason why I thought Judge Kavanaugh was such a bad person. That's not what I meant. Bad justice now. A bad judge in the D.C. Circuit Court. He took a similar approach when it pertains to the Fourth Amendment. There was a case that came out of the D.C. Circuit Court that essentially said something to the effect of, there was a guy up in New York who was a book dealer, and he was dealing with another book dealer down in Florida. And whoever in the NSA or CIA or whoever was tapping into these phone calls, they were speaking Italian. And I don't know why this happened. It sounds like the dumbest thing in the world, but they didn't have a translator on the phone. They were just gathering this data. They were just gathering the phone calls, the audio of the phone calls, not interpreting the Italian to know that they were talking about books as opposed to quantity of drugs. So they never prosecuted the guy for anything because eventually at some point, somebody figured out that this guy was dealing books and not drugs. Now, it sounded like he was dealing drugs, I guess, to the untrained ear because they were talking tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars. These were high-end first edition books. So eventually this case gets brought to court. And he gets in front of then Judge Kavanaugh at the D.C. Circuit Court, who is now Justice Kavanaugh in the Supreme Court. And Judge Kavanaugh then said, well, look, man, it's not technically violative of the Fourth Amendment because you never prosecuted over it. So in Judge Kavanaugh's mind, your Fourth Amendment doesn't start until the police actually use that information against you. They can spy on you and gather information all day long if they want to, but unless and until they actually use it to prosecute you or hold you accountable for something or try and throw you in jail, that's the only time your right starts. I personally feel that is an inverse way to view the Fourth Amendment, and that's a little bit of how the NSA views it as well. Well, we're collecting information on all y'all. We're spying on all y'all, but only a super small percentage.
Standard for Kavanaugh because, obviously he'd experienced some kind of harm.
Exactly.
Because he wouldn't have been in his court. He wouldn't have been in the D.C. Circuit Court because, you know how expensive it is to sue somebody and end up in the D.C. Circuit Court. That's so expensive for that lawyer. And whatever. I mean, to be standing in front of someone like Kavanaugh, you'd have to be paying someone like $10,000, so much money. And so, obviously he's experiencing some harm because he's petitioning the government saying, I've experienced harm and I don't want anyone else or me to experience that again. And he's saying, well, you obviously didn't experience a lot of harm. You're not in jail.
Right.
What the heck?
I know, man. I know.
Lame. It's so they can arrest you, but they don't have to prosecute you, right?
Yeah.
They can actually put you in handcuffs, put you in jail, but if the prosecutor decides not to prosecute you, then it's not a big deal. No biggie. No biggie. It's just handcuffs. Come on. Right.
And I guess in some sense, this is taking this concept of what really is property. Is this what we're doing right now? Is what Shine and I doing? Is that property?
I'm property. Okay. I'm property. Don't violate me.
Don't violate me. Right. I mean, look. That's why I when people were talking about getting Justice Kavanaugh up there, who was then Judge Kavanaugh, everybody was focusing on the whole alleged serial rapist scandal, which was just asinine. But whatever, that's what they were focusing on. That's what was carrying the narrative. The SNL skit where he's sitting there blubbering over the papers that he's flipping through and looking through his calendar. That's what was grabbing headlines. And this sole voice in the country that was talking about the actual issue that we should be concerned with was Judge Andrew Napolitano, saying, "Y'all, you guys realize this guy's terrible in the fourth, right?" And it's
Rand
highly
Paul
likely.
was on it too. Rand Paul wanted to hold up the nomination. It's just his little holding it up was lost in the drowning ocean of rapist.
Yeah.
He drank a beer, He drank a beer and he went to a party, and Rand Paul's like, he's going to be on the Supreme Court and he's not good on Fourth Amendment issues. Who cares about this party and the beer? But anyway. But that whole thing was sad because we could have had a real national conversation and debate, and instead we had a big poop fest.
We did have a big
Just
poop
a
fest.
giant poop fest.
And I think that's what Edward Snowden was pointing to. And ultimately what I hope, if anything comes out of anything that he showed us, is just a basic conversation again about when you believe your Fourth Amendment right starts. I personally believe that right doesn't come from our government. And it's not because a bunch of elected or otherwise appointed men and women told me that I have the right to be safe and secure in my property, my effects, and safe and secure in my home and free from any harassment or I believe that right comes from God himself. I believe that right comes from our literal creator. I believe that right comes from something far bigger than even just our collective consciousness. The point I'm making is it's not a right because the government tells me it is. The government is restricted in what it can do because there's a power greater than our government. And that individual liberty that comes along with that is something that government must be restricted against. So when I say I believe in the Fourth Amendment, I believe in the Fourth Amendment not just as a concept that can be violated if it makes sense at the time, if you can justify it. I believe in the Fourth Amendment in the sense that God gave me this, in the sense that in the same way that I exist, that I breathe air right now, that you cannot violate that. All right? So my Fourth Amendment doesn't start just because you brought me to court and want to prosecute me with something. My Fourth Amendment starts when you're looking into what I'm doing without my acknowledgement. As long as I'm not in a public place, let's make that for sure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Grant.
Hey
can we end on a positive note? Talk about peace. Can we talk about peace? Can we just talk about peace? I mean, remember peace? Remember peace and how nice it was? You remember the 90s?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. We had a war in Bosnia in the 90s.
Yeah. What about peace?
Oh, I'm talking about the Norwegian official.
Who
nominated our president, number 45, for the Nobel Prize for actually doing something, unlike the last president who won a prize for going on a speaking tour.
Hey, and by the way, did you see that too? I just saw this headline briefly flash up at some point that apparently the president or head of the Nobel Committee, I don't know, whoever does these nominating or something like that, apparently he regrets making that decision of nominating or giving one to president. Did Obama actually win one, or was he just nominated?
No, he won.
Did he win one?
Yeah, and he actually said at the acceptance speech, "I have no idea why I'm here." Because this, actually, I was thinking about it. It was before he even went on the Arab speaking tour. It was right after he won the election. Like it was just from coming up with the marketing hope and change. I think that was it. It was like best marketing ever. Hope and change. Right. Like you made us all believe that we can hope and change.
Hoping and changing.
Well, wait, let's not bury the lead though.
Yeah, let's not bury the lead. Here is the lead, by the way, from the Hill. Norwegian official nominates Trump for Nobel Prize, citing Israel, UAE, United Arab Emirates agreement. Here's the story. A member of the Norwegian parliament has nominated President Donald Trump for the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize for his role brokering relations between Israel and UAE, the United Arab Emirates. This person's name is Christian. I clicked that too soon.
It's called Jed. Christian Jed. That's what it looks like to me.
Christian. I can't get this. This
Christian Jed.
This person's a 4-term member of parliament and chairman of the Norwegian delegation at the NATO Parliamentary Assembly. Submitted the nomination to the Nobel Committee. Ad, if you don't shut up, I can't talk over you. Shine, nobody else can hear this, but there's this terrible prescription ad playing in the background right now while I'm talking.
I hate prescriptions
ads so much,
and ads.
I hate them all so much. Anyways, he says, here's what this guy says. For his merit, I think he has done more trying to create peace between nations than most other Peace Prize nominees. Trump announced last month that the U.S. was helping
I think that's a reference to the last person who won one.
Right. He says, the Hill says, Trump announced last month that that the U.S. was helping to support the full normalization of ties between Israel and UAE, a historic breakthrough in relations in the Middle East, and part of the administration's efforts to shore up support against Iran. As part of the agreement, Israel would halt efforts to annex territory in the West Bank that was outlined in Trump's plan for peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. UAE also officially ended its boycott against Israel. That's pretty huge right there. Its boycott against Israel, opening up trade, commerce, and air travel between the two countries. Now, look, I know Trump is getting all the credit for this, and I don't mean to take the story away from Trump, but I think this has a lot to do with Jared. Am I wrong, buddy? Kushner? I'm pretty sure Kushner's the guy that's pushing all this, yeah?
Well, you know, everything does live and die with the president when the president is the president.
Yeah, that's valid. That's valid.
And obviously, Jared Kushner would not have been in the position to do any of the work that he was doing if Donald Trump hadn't won. Because who would have hired Jared Kushner?
Right.
Right. Nobody. Definitely not Hillary Clinton, for sure. Definitely not Hillary Clinton. So, you know, you can give, and I would say, too, that we haven't started any new wars. And that makes it a lot easier to start peace negotiations. Gives you a little more standing, right? So, and I think that there are several times where we could have easily been involved in long-term conflict that Donald Trump chose to pull back, right? And I think the same day, yesterday, they announced another troop withdrawal from Iraq. The same day as the Nobel Peace thing. The same day that happened, they announced another troop withdrawal. So, like, you got to give President Trump a little bit of credit for hiring Jared and creating the greater national security situation, right? Through other executive actions and through other departments like the Department of State and everything else, maybe in DOD, right? Keeping things peaceful and creating an environment where peace can happen or where these peace deals can be made.
This article goes on to say that I'm assuming the parliament member, also cited Trump's key role in facilitating contact between conflicting parties and creating new dynamics in other protracted conflicts, such as the Kashmir border between India and Pakistan and the conflicts between North and South Korea. Now, importantly, I don't know if it was this same parliamentary member, but at least another parliamentary member somewhere back in 2018 also nominated President Trump for what he did with North Korea at the time. So that reference there is a little bit to what he's talking about, the conflict between North and South Korea, as well as dealing with nuclear capabilities of North Korea. That story kind of just fell off the map. All right. I guess North Korea with that.
Him walking into the DMZ.
Yeah, right.
With no guards. That was cool.
Yeah. So look, I don't know what's going to come from this. I'm not sure. But I will say this much, man. I don't know. At least it's for something, right? At least it's for something as opposed to, well, just throwing it out there because you can. Hey, my name is Mr. Henry, by the way, David Shine Thompson. There's a bunch of stories in the show notes that we didn't get to. Just pointing those out real quick. If you want to, there's stories of the Bob Woodward stuff is linked. I just did not have the effort to go through it today. We might be able to get through that tomorrow. Let me know what you think in the show notes. I mean, in the comment section today, or message us afterwards. Once you've been through some of the information, and maybe we'll cover it tomorrow. We also have a story down there about the escalation continues. That's just some carryover a little bit from the weekend happening in Rochester and Pittsburgh and a few other things. We have some indications now by way of polling and a few other things that this unchecked violence is causing support to falter. There's actually been a new poll that just came out recently that indicates that support for these groups, shall I say, is actually 5% lower than it was before some of these marches continued. So there was a massive uptick in support, and then it dropped so much over the last couple of weeks here that it's now 5% lower than it was when it initially started. Also some stories there about Boogaloo Boys charged. Read up on that Boogaloo Boys thing, man. I just cannot figure out for the life of me the story behind that. Mail-in voting stuff. Joe Rogan's podcast moved to Spotify, and they cut off his interviews with Alex Jones and Milo Yiannopoulos, causing a $4.8 billion headache because once people found out that was happening, Spotify's stock dropped. A few other stories we may get to tomorrow. Either way, my name is Mr. Henry. David Shine Thompson signing off for this morning. We love y'all. See y'all tomorrow.